Hello?
Alberto. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi Richard, perfectly.
Very good.
Well, thanks for your time and for granting us this interview.
My pleasure.
I know you're a busy man, so let's start. One of the main objectives that I think developers look for in every game is to make it feel as real as possible. In Ultima 4 and the games following, this was partly done through the virtue system, transforming the whole decision-making process into something that we could recognize from our real life, where there is no complete good or complete evil. But there are different principles that sometimes contradict each other, such as, well, spirituality and sacrifice, or honor and compassion. Well, why and how did this all come from?
Yeah, so for me, the beginnings of trying to craft a story with more depth came after I had created the first few Ultimas. And during those first few Ultimas, it was very difficult just to make a game. And so no additional challenge was required for me as a game maker to feel fulfilled, other than just the process of making a game work. However, then after I finished my third Ultima, I was ready for a new challenge. I wanted to make a game that was more in depth, had something more than just fighting monsters and collecting treasure. As you know, most games, even today, still are merely about fighting monsters and collecting treasure. And that's what started me on the research, which eventually became the virtues. Specifically, when I said I wanted to create a game with more depth in it, I then looked at systems of virtue that existed historically, but I found that most of them did not have appropriate contemporary relevance. The 7 deadly sins, it came into existence during a specific period of time. Similarly, the 10 commandments, came into existence, in a certain period of time. And if I wanted to create something that seemed relevant to modern society, I had to invent a system of virtues from scratch. And that's what started the research for Ultima 4.
And how important would you consider that subtly around the avatar's virtuous evolution, like no explicit virtue points, is to the atmosphere of the game? I mean, when after a quest you never receive a message such as "Congratulations, you won 10 compassion points," nor anything like that. You have to kinda guess the consequences of what you are doing, of your actions, which is a very subtle way to introduce the virtue system to the players.
Yes, I think you're quite correct. That I think it's very important that the system in the virtue crafting of Ultima I very specifically did not tell you what the gain or loss was in each of those virtues, because I knew that would, instead of changing people's honest behavior, they would just change their behavior where they knew it was being measured. And I wanted to be able to make people wonder if there might have been sophistication enough to put measure in more places than there was. For example, there were a few times where you were set up in combat. One of my favorites was a jail cell full of children. And if you unlock the jail cell, the children are actually monsters and come attack you. And so I knew that the players might wonder, should I kill these monsters that look like children? In fact, the game didn't care, because I'd had no way of testing that condition. But I knew that in the player's mind, it would make them be cautious about killing things inadvertently that might actually not be appropriate to kill.
That's a rather interesting point. So what you are saying is that the real key of the success of the Virtuous system is that it's not as much important to the game itself as it is in the player's mind, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, even though the ethics systems in Ultima 4 was and I think it still is quite unmatched, it kept evolving, like in Ultima 5 or Ultima 6, where it showed us that following what we think is a virtuous path would not always be a righteous decision. One would have expected that, well, with Origins gone, some other company would have kept evolving about this whole idea of showing the player the consequences of their actions. But the only company that seems to give importance to these matters is BioWare, and their way to make it interesting consists of making a choice between only three options. One is good, one is neutral, and another one is aggressive. Well, they deny us some important information about the character with whom we are interacting, so as to create some uncertainty around the whole situation. Well, what do you think about this approach?
Well, first, I agree with you that BioWare seems to be the only other organization who is attempting to do this similar kind of work. And I'm a big fan of their work. I think they're doing a very good job of creating entertainment that is deeper than most other games these days. But I also agree with you that what I hope to rekindle